Can you preview at all what some of the specific changes you'd like to see with regard to FEMA's response? And does that include possibly eliminating the agency as the president has suggested?
Well, so first of all, it's not just FEMA, right? There's Housing and Urban Development, there's the Department of Agriculture. There's a lot of different agencies that are coordinating in response to this particular problem. And a couple of things that particularly seem to matter the most to the people of Damascus is, one, this incredible bike trail and hiking trail that runs along these mountains is a major source of economic opportunity and economic development, right? People come in, they stay in Airbnbs, they stay in bed and breakfast, they go to the coffee shops, they go to the restaurants. But unfortunately, the part of that trail that is managed and monitored by the federal government has been way too slow to actually start that rebuilding process. That's something that we want to focus on immediately. I think a second big issue is, and the governor knows these numbers better than I do, but I believe the maximum you can get from FEMA for home rebuilding is about $42,000, right? The average amount of damage, as I heard today, is about $130,000, right? So that's a massive, $80,000, $90,000 shortfall that we need to make sure that other parts of the federal government are fixing. Now, to be clear, the continuing resolution that was passed just a few weeks ago actually does have the resources to fill that gap, but only if the bureaucrats get out of the way and actually make sure that people get the money that they're entitled to, that the American people have decided that we want to contribute and we want to fund this incredible redevelopment, but it's got to happen quicker than it's been happening with the bureaucracy in Washington.
Time for one more question, guys. One more.
I have a question about the situation in Western North Carolina as well. Some people were complaining about some of the red tape they had to get through to get trailers or the hotel vouchers. They were about to end in January when there was a snowstorm. What do you guys make of some of that disorganization, and what are some specific ways you could streamline that process and just make the recovery process more efficient?
Well, unfortunately, it's just a perfect example of the bureaucratic inadequacy of the last administration and why we need to do better in this country. The thing that I heard most when I was in Western North Carolina before the inauguration, but it was after the election, is that there are people who wanted to put trailers or other temporary housing in particular areas of Western North Carolina, but they couldn't because FEMA had designated these particular areas to be ineligible for the type of assistance that would allow people to put that temporary housing in the first place. That's another example of the sort of thing that's broken about the federal response. And it's actually, when you have such great governors like Lynn Youngkin, and you talk to people, and it's like the local government's working, the state government is working as hard as it can, the local communities and the nonprofits and the churches are working at breakneck speed, and yet you have the federal government out there, the biggest institution with the most money that's not doing its job. It just drives home how much better we can do. And I think one of the takeaways of just my time the last week being the people's vice president is they should have higher expectations for their federal government. I talk to so many people who will say, in effect, well, it's the federal government, oh, the bureaucracy, oh, the red tape. No. The bureaucracy and the red tape is not an excuse for the government to not do its job. We're not going to be perfect. We never will be. Government is as fallible as the people who run it, but we can do a heck of a lot better than we have over the last few years, and that is something that President Trump and I are committed to doing. And let me just leave you with one final thought. I know that a lot of the people watching in the local news, look, this is a part of our country, Appalachian, Virginia, that has been ignored and left behind for decades, for generations in this country. Again, we're never going to be perfect, but I promise you that this administration will not forget you. We love you, we're rooting for you, and we want to be part of this incredible recovery here in Southwest Virginia. God bless you guys. Thanks for being here.